Walk into any pharmacy today, and the toothbrush aisle looks less like dental care and more like a small electronics store. Sonic vibration heads, Bluetooth connectivity, pressure sensors that judge you in real time, 14 shades of whitening toothpaste, 3 of which promise activated charcoal, as if your mouth is now a water filter. Somewhere in the mix, a single roll of floss costs more than a sandwich. And yet, for the overwhelming majority of human history, nobody had a toothbrush aisle. No bristles, no mint gel, no dentist reminding you twice a year that you are apparently the only person on Earth who does not floss enough. So how did ancient humans avoid walking around with a mouth full of rotting stumps? The easy answer is they didn't brush at all. And that answer is, once again, only about half true. It is a little like saying humans crossed oceans by getting wet. Our ancestors did not simply let their teeth fend for themselves. They chewed on specific plants, scraped their gums with specific tools, rinsed with specific substances, and, in at least one deeply unfortunate case, brushed with something you would never willingly put near your face today. Before the toothbrush could be invented, humans first had to figure out a much older problem: how to keep the only tools you are born with from falling apart before you do. The mouth was the original. Multitool teeth were never just for chewing. For most of human history, teeth were pliers, hooks, clamps, and portable third hands. People used their teeth to soften hides, grip cordage, strip bark, and hold a tool steady while both hands were busy doing something else. Archaeologists can actually see this in the fossil record. Certain wear patterns, chips and grooves on ancient teeth line up almost perfectly with repetitive tasks like pulling sinew through the mouth or gripping stiff plant fiber. This meant ancient teeth took a beating that modern teeth never will. A cracked molar was not just a bad afternoon. It could mean an infection with no antibiotics, a painful abscess, or worse. Keeping teeth functional was not a matter of vanity. It was survival equipment maintenance, and early humans clearly understood, even if only through trial and error, that neglecting the mouth had consequences. There is also something else working quietly in our ancestors' favor, something modern humans rarely think about: their diet. Before farming, most human groups ate very little refined sugar and very little sticky processed starch. Wild plants, lean meat, nuts, and tubers do not linger on the teeth the way a candy bar does. Studies comparing the teeth of hunter-gatherer populations to early farming populations show a striking pattern. Cavities were relatively rare before agriculture, and then surged once grain-based diets became common. In other words, prehistoric humans were not winning some secret dental hygiene contest. They were partly protected by a menu that had not yet discovered bread, but partly protected is not the same as immune. Plaque still built up. Food still got stuck. Gums still became inflamed. And so, long before anyone invented a brush, humans reached for the only tools they had lying around: the plants beneath their feet. The original toothbrush grew on a bush. If you strip away the branding, a toothbrush is a simple idea. Take something slightly stiff, slightly fibrous, and rub it against your teeth until the surface feels cleaner. Nature had already solved that problem for us. Countless plants around the world produce twigs that, when chewed at one end, naturally fray into soft bristle-like fibers. No manufacturing required. No factory. Just teeth and patience. This is the origin of what researchers now call the chewing stick, sometimes known by its Arabic name, the miswak, traditionally cut from the Salvadora persica tree, sometimes called the toothbrush tree for reasons that should now be obvious. People would take a fresh twig, chew one end until it softened into fine bristles, and then use that frayed tip to scrub the teeth and gums. The twig itself was not passive. Salvadora persica naturally contains compounds with antibacterial properties, along with mild abrasives that help lift away plaque. Ancient people did not need a laboratory to notice that chewing certain sticks left their mouths feeling cleaner and smelling less unpleasant than chewing others. They only needed to pay attention. Chewing sticks were not confined to one region. Variations show up independently across Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia, each community reaching for whatever locally available plant seemed to help. In parts of South Asia, the neem tree became the tool of choice, its twigs prized in traditional Ayurvedic practice for centuries, again for both its texture and its natural antimicrobial compounds. This wasn't superstition dressed up as medicine. Modern studies on neem and Salvadora persica have found real antibacterial activity, meaning ancient people, through nothing but repeated observation, stumbled onto something legitimately effective. Historical texts back this up in a way archaeology alone cannot. Babylonian records from as early as 3500 BCE describe the use of chewing sticks. Egyptian texts mention them too, describing the frayed twig method in ways that would look entirely familiar to anyone still using a miswak today. This was not a fringe practice or an occasional experiment. It was a widespread, independently discovered solution to a universal problem, refined and passed down for thousands of years before anyone thought to attach bristles to a handle. When ancient humans invented toothpaste, sort of chewing sticks solved scrubbing, but humans have never been satisfied with just one tool when a second tool might work better. This is where things get, frankly, a little unsettling. The Ebers Papyrus, an Egyptian medical text dating to roughly 1550 BCE, contains what many historians consider one of the earliest known toothpaste recipes. The ingredients included things like powdered ox hooves, ash, burnt eggshells, and pumice, all ground together into an abrasive paste. The idea was straightforward even if the execution was rough. A gritty paste, rubbed onto the teeth with a finger or a cloth, could help scrape away buildup the same way sand can clean a dirty pan. It worked, more or less, though almost certainly at the cost of some enamel in the process. The Romans and Greeks took the abrasive concept and ran with it, sometimes in directions modern dentists would strongly discourage. Crushed oyster shells, bones, and even crushed marble found their way into ancient dental powders. Abrasiveness was treated as a feature, not a warning label. Then there is the part of this story that tends to make people physically recoil. Ancient Romans, and later some parts of medieval Europe, used urine as a mouth rinse. This was not an act of desperation or a myth invented to shock modern audiences. Urine contains ammonia, and ammonia genuinely has cleaning and whitening properties. Roman sources describe imported Portuguese urine being used specifically for its reputation as an especially effective whitening agent, popular enough that the Roman Emperor Vespasian famously placed a tax on urine collected from public latrines. Whether that urine was primarily destined for laundering wool or for dental use is debated among historians, but its use in oral hygiene during the period is documented all the same. It is tempting to laugh this off as ancient ignorance, and there is plenty to laugh at here, but the underlying logic was not irrational. These were people working entirely from observation, without microscopes, without any concept of bacteria, piecing together which substances made teeth look and feel cleaner through nothing but repeated trial. Sometimes that experimentation led somewhere genuinely useful, like antibacterial chewing sticks. Sometimes it led to rinsing your mouth with something that would make a modern dentist quietly leave the room. From twig to tool, the first true toothbrush. For most of history, dental care meant chewing sticks, abrasive powders, and cloth rubbed across the teeth. The toothbrush as a distinct handled object, separate from a simple twig, appears far later, and its most direct ancestor comes from China. During the Tang Dynasty, around the 7th century CE, Chinese craftsmen began producing brushes with handles carved from bone or bamboo, fitted with stiff bristles taken from the necks of hogs, angled to make cleaning the back teeth easier. This was a genuine leap forward. Instead of relying on a plant's natural fraying, someone had deliberately engineered a tool specifically for brushing, choosing bristle stiffness and handle shape on purpose, rather than accepting whatever a twig happened to offer. This design slowly made its way west through trade routes, reaching Europe by the 17th century, where it was gradually adopted by the wealthy as something of a novelty item. For a long time, it remained exactly that, a novelty. Most Europeans, even into the 18th century, still relied on rags, chewed sticks, or simply their fingers. The mass-produced toothbrush most people would recognize today did not appear until 1780, and its origin story is oddly specific. An Englishman named William Addis, sitting in prison after a riot, reportedly grew frustrated with cleaning his teeth using a rag dipped in soot and salt. He saved a small animal bone, drilled tiny holes into it, obtained bristles from a guard, tied them into tufts, and threaded them through the holes, gluing them in place. After his release, Addis began manufacturing and selling toothbrushes commercially, and the design spread rapidly. Bone handles eventually gave way to celluloid in the late 1800s, and celluloid eventually gave way to nylon bristles in the 1930s, finally arriving at something close to the toothbrush sitting in your bathroom right now. What fossils and old bones actually tell us, written records only stretch back a few thousand years. But human teeth themselves go back much further, and they leave behind their own kind of evidence. Anthropologists studying ancient jawbones have repeatedly noticed thin, repetitive grooves worn into the sides of teeth, positioned exactly where a thin object dragged repeatedly between them would leave a mark. These are often referred to as toothpick grooves, and they appear on the remains of Homo habilis, Neanderthals, and early Homo sapiens alike, suggesting that some form of deliberate dental cleaning, even something as simple as picking food from between the teeth with a twig or blade of grass, stretches back hundreds of thousands of years, long before anyone was capable of writing a recipe for toothpaste. Even more striking evidence comes from a set of teeth discovered in Slovenia, roughly 6,500 years old, containing what researchers identified as a filling made from beeswax, packed directly into a cracked tooth. Whether this was meant to ease pain, strengthen a weak spot, or simply stop food from getting lodged inside the crack is still debated. But the intention behind it is unmistakable. Someone, 6,500 years ago, looked at a broken tooth and thought, "I can fix this." None of this paints a picture of people passively accepting whatever happened to their mouths. Long before dentistry existed as a profession, before anyone understood bacteria or enamel erosion, humans were picking, scraping, chewing, and occasionally sealing their own teeth, using whatever raw materials the world happened to offer them. An old problem. Wearing new packaging, it is easy to look back at chewing sticks, ash powders, and Roman urine rinses and feel a comfortable sense of distance, as if modern humans have finally, fully solved the problem. But the underlying behavior has not actually changed, only the materials wrapped around it. We still search for the right texture. We still look for something that scrubs without damaging. We still chase whitening, freshness, and a vague promise that the right product will make other people trust us slightly more. Toothpaste companies today are not selling a new idea. They are selling the same idea Egyptian scribes were writing about more than 3,000 years ago, just with better packaging and considerably less crushed oyster shell. Even the instinct behind flavored toothpaste has ancient roots. Long before mint became the default, various cultures added herbs, spices, and aromatic plants to their cleaning powders, partly for taste, and partly because certain plants seemed to leave the breath fresher afterward. Ancient people could not explain why in scientific terms, but they noticed the effect, remembered it, and passed it along anyway. There is something almost humbling in realizing how much of what feels distinctly modern about dental hygiene is really just an old, patient process of trial and observation, stretched across thousands of years and countless cultures who never spoke to each other, yet somehow landed on remarkably similar solutions. A stick that frays into bristles, a powder that scrapes without shredding, A rinse that leaves the mouth feeling different than before. None of it required a factory. It only required people willing to notice what worked and pass that knowledge on to the next person chewing the same kind of twig. So the next time an electric toothbrush buzzes politely in your hand, or a whitening strip promises results in 14 days, remember where this all actually started. Somewhere in Africa or the Middle East, thousands of years before anyone wrote it down, someone chewed the end of a twig, noticed their mouth felt cleaner, and quietly changed human history. A twig with excellent marketing potential.